So hello everyone, this is CA Sanjeevani, your friend, mentor and coach for audit and law. And today we are going to start with the most important topic as far as auditing is concerned, that is standards of auditing. Now if I talk about standards of auditing, it is one of the fear factor for students. Most of the students are very much afraid with the standards. Sir, can we leave standards? Sir, we are not able to manage the standards of auditing. It is very bulky, it is very tough, it is very technical. We are not able to retain the standards. Please give us some kind of shortcut. Please give us such solution. All these dilemmas you have. All these dilemmas you have. So now let us try and let us simplify the standards of auditing. So first of all, if I talk about what is standards, what do you mean by standards? So if I put it in a very simplified manner, standards are the benchmarks that have been set. Standards are the benchmarks that have been set for the auditors. The objective of standards is to bring in uniformity in the auditing practices across the globe, right? The objective of standards is to bring in uniformity in auditing practices across the globe. Just imagine a situation where the standards of auditing is not there. Every auditor is reporting in a different manner, right? Every auditor is conveying his message to the users of financial statements in a different manner. Every auditor is performing different audit procedures, and then the users of financial statements are caught in a dilemma how to perceive those reports, because every auditor is reporting in a different manner. Every auditing is performing the set of procedures he wants. There is no uniformity and the users are confused. The users are in a dilemma. How can we rely upon these financial statements? So that is why the objective of standards is to bring in uniformity across the globe in the auditing practices. The objective of standards is to create a benchmark. Ki boss, this is how you are required to audit. This is how you are required to audit. You know very well that the objective of the audit is to report whether the financial statements reflect true and fair view. Section 143 subsection 2 states that the auditor's objective is to report whether the financial statements reflect true and fair view. But to ensure whether the financial statements reflect true and fair view, there are a set of procedures that the auditors need to perform. Right, there are a set of procedures that the auditors needs to perform. For example, whenever the entity has high risk of inventory, the auditor needs to go and perform physical verification of inventory. For example, the auditor always needs to check whether there are frauds in an organization, and if the frauds exist, he is required to report to the government. For example, the auditor always needs to ensure whether the financial statements are free from frauds and errors. The auditor needs to identify whether the laws and regulations are being complied with. So similarly, there are a lot of procedures that the auditors needs to perform. Only if he performs all these procedures, we can ensure that the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view, right? And that is why these standards are enacted. We can also tell that standards of auditing is like a Bhagavad Gita. Like Bhagavad Gita gives solution to the most of the problems of your life. Similarly, standards of auditing gives a solution to most of the dilemmas that the auditor is caught into during the audit process. During the audit process, whenever the auditor is in a dilemma, should I conduct physical verification or not? What if I am not able to conduct the physical verification of audit? Should I accept this audit or not? Should I continue with this audit or not? So whenever the auditor is in a dilemma, the standards of auditing will address him, will give him the solution. That is why standards of auditing is very, very important for the practical life. Right, and because of the fact that the standards of auditing is very important for the practical life, it is also very important for the academic life of a student. You see, in CA Inter you have standards of auditing 30 to 40 marks. Then in CA Final you again have standards of auditing 30 to 40 marks, and the content remains the same. So you can understand the importance of standards. Now, why most of the students are afraid with this topic? Because the problem is that there are around 35 to 40 standards, and if we just count the number of pages given in the ICI material, so a student is required to study approximately 500 to 600 pages for some 30-35 marks. So for 30-35 marks, if a student is required to mug up 600 pages or technical pages, then practically it is impossible for a student. A student tries mugging up everything but end up retaining nothing. That is the story. That is why what we have done is we have beautifully summarized all the standards of auditing. We have beautifully summarized all the standards of auditing, and we have just compiled all the standards in just around 150 pages. This is the 150 pages you need to understand, you need to learn, you need to revise, and you need to deliver in the exams. If you are just familiar with this 150 pages, it is more than sufficient for you to do well in the examinations hall. So our concentration will be on those 150 pages. Another problem that the student faces is that, rather I can say, another mistake that the student does while studying the standards is that he just go on a chronological flow. For example, the standards of auditing start with asset 200, right? So first we have asset 200, then we have asset 210, then we have asset 220, then we have asset 230, 240, 250, 260, and so on. It goes on till the 700 series. Now the student study the same in a chronological manner. And in that very scenario, he will never get the conceptual clarity that he needs. That is why we have made our own chronology of the standards. And we are going to study the standards of auditing in a chronological manner that is going to be very, very logical, and that is going to be very, very interesting. For example, if you go in a chronological manner, then SS 700 series must be taught at last. But first of all, we'll be learning the SS 700 series. Because SS 700 series deals with reporting, and the ultimate objective of the audit is reporting. And once you are familiar with SS 700 series, that reporting part is common in almost all the standards. And you are done with that common part. Similarly, there are many standards which are common and which has a universal application. For example, as a 200, objective of the auditor. For example, as a 230, audit documentation. For example, as a 260, communication to those charged with governance. So these standards have a universal application, as a 580, written representation. So first we are going to cover these standards, because these standards are having a universal application and it is going to help you in other standards as well. I cannot teach you as a 240, that is audit, standards on fraud, without teaching you as a 200, 210, 260, 265 and the reporting standards. Only if I have taught you the reporting standards, I can teach you as a 240 and 250. And the beauty is that once you are done with the other standards, as a 240, as a 250, as a 550, 560, all these technical standards become very easy for you, right? So that is the beauty of this chronological order. Now, we have divided the standards of auditing in different categories to ease your preparation. You will note down this categorization as well. If we talk about standards of auditing, as a 200 to 700 is what that is applicable for the examinations. As a 700 ke baad we also have as a 800 series, but that is not applicable for your examinations. We have SAEs, that is standards of assurance engagements, that is again not applicable for your examinations. We have SREs, that is standards of review engagements, that is not again applicable to your examinations. We have SRS, that is standards on related services, that is also not applicable to your examinations. ICI has removed all of this from your syllabus, right? So what you need to study is only from SS 200 to SS 700, that is standards of auditing, that is audit of the historical financial statements, audit of the historical financial statements. And this standards is going to teach us how to audit the historical financial statements. What are the audit procedures we need to perform in that? Right. Before starting with the standards, one last thing that I'm going to tell you in the introduction part. Standards of auditing was earlier prescribed by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So till date, all the standards we have and that we are going to study have been prescribed, have been made by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Right. But now the power has shifted to NAFRA, that is the National Financial Reporting Authority. So in future, all the new standards that are going to be constituted are going to be constituted by NAFRA, right? But till the time NAFRA comes up with the new standards, we are going to study the standards that ICI has already set for us. So I am going to first of all give you an introduction, what are the different standards we have, and I am also going to teach you a presentation that you can actually use in all the questions of standards that come in the examinations. And thereafter, we'll be starting standards one by one. So standards of auditing के अंदर what we have done is we have classified the standards into different types. For example, the first category is reporting standards. Reporting standards के अंदर we have the SS 700 series, SS 700, 701, 705, 706, 710, 720, right? And reporting standards के अंदर you can also include CARO 16. You can also include 143 subsection 3, not a part of reporting standards but directly related with the reporting standards. This is the complete audit report chapter that you have. So first of all, we are going to do the reporting standards. Then we have some basic standards, some common standards like asset 200 overall objectives of the auditor, asset 210 that is preconditions of an audit, asset 220 we have quality control, asset 230 audit documentation, 320 materiality, 580, 530, 300. Then we have standards only on audit evidence, particularly on audit evidence, that is asset 500, 501, 505, 510, 520. Then communication to those tasks of governance asset 260, 265. Using others work, we have asset 299, 600, 610, 620. Then we have risk assessment standards. We have a special category of standards where special application of mind is involved. That is, we have asset 240, 250, 315, 330, 450, 402, 540, 550, 560, 570. So if you study the standards in this chronology, it is going to be easy for you, right? So that is why we are going to understand the standards in a chronological manner. First of all, how the reporting will be done. Then what is the objective of the auditor? Whether we should accept the audit or not. If we have accepted the audit, we should know the objective. After accepting the audit, how the documentation is to be done, right? So in a basic flow, we are going to deal with the standards, and that is going to make the journey easy for you. You can please note it down, and thereafter we'll be starting with the first set of reporting standards.